So I keep getting recommended this subreddit, r/average, and frankly, it's one of the most miserable goddamn things I've ever seen in my life. So, I just want to wade through this sewage today, check out these awful posts. Number 1, I just wanted my coffee. I just wanted my coffee. There's this coffee shop I've been going to for the past 3 months now. This morning I walk in and there's a guy in front of me. He's probably like 6'6" and had a wedding ring on. He approaches the counter and she is giving him the smile. You know the one. Laughing, holding eye contact, the whole performance like he's the best part of her shift. He's just ordering a coffee. He's not being charming. He's literally just saying words. And she is eating it up. The whole thing. Then he leaves. And it's my turn to get that like a light switch immediately flipped, and now customer service autopilot, like I was the last thing she wanted to see. Like she was like disappointed to see me standing there approaching me. What can I get you? Not even a question mark at the end of it. That's how flat her fucking voice was. And I had never spoken to this girl in my life aside from ordering coffee. Never been rude to her, never been weird, nothing. This was a physical reaction only. She looked at me and her brain went, no, and she didn't even try to hide it. She was radiant 10 seconds before, and all that was missing was a hair twirl and a fucking lip bite for a married man. But even the guy on autopilot was more worthy of her energy than me just standing there. A strange example, because I don't think it's exactly emblematic of the sub, but it's so awful that I feel like I just had to put it first. Like, Jesus Christ, dude, you're just imagining like a fucking fictional scenario in your head where this Giga Chad in front of you mogs the fuck out of you at the coffee store and you're like the poor little victim. How'd you even see Shawty's reaction over this tall fucking Giga stud? But seriously, life has no problems without you making up imaginary scenarios where you get cucked every time you get a coffee. Number 2, this is what I've been telling you guys. In this one, you can see Diddy Blood is mad that he is just, too much of a manlet that he can't even get an emo girl. That's the issue with this one. I mean, dude, come on, homie. Like one random comment blackpill you is the height of, I don't know, like being the biggest fucking baby in the world. Like, call the ambulance, buddy. Get a Whamburger with a side of French fries and a glass of wine. Some deep fried bitchin', with some soft.
Jesus was 5'5". That's crazy.
What are you?
That's why I feel like.
Part 3. Short King Jesus.
No, we can have this conversation. We do know it's based on the region and how much protein intake they had at the time. About 2,000 years ago. They didn't grow to be 6 foot on average. Also, based on how wide and tall they made the coffins when they buried the bodies, and how high the doorways were in the house that they lived in, they couldn't have been more than 5'5" on average. So we actually do know, sir.
There were 15 dudes the same as me, Jesus.
That's just downtown Portland.
So this post argues that a lot of people only worship Jesus because he's tall. Like, this one I feel is like, I genuinely have no idea if it's satire, but this sub wells in its self-pity so much, like, I literally cannot, I can't tell. But like, I seriously can't imagine any Christians give a single fuck about Jesus' height. Like, I don't, like, even like, from like people are shallow perspective, I don't know, I just don't think people like look at religion like people like the Buddha and people that everyone thinks he's fat. Even like people think the Buddha was fat, even though he was actually like an anorexic fuck. So either way, he wasn't exactly like a healthy body type guy. But like, I don't think Christians like Jesus because he's a giga stud. People like him because he's he's the son of God. This is the creature with magical powers. Also, apparently like Jesus was like black. Yeah, he was Middle Eastern. A lot of people hate when you bring that up. Also, one of the commenters flares is apolitical prophet. The fucking pretentiousness final boss. Calling yourself a goddamn fucking prophet. What hubris? What fucking hubris? Part 4. Allowed to have standards. In this post, you can see after mentioning a dog, the woman immediately asks how tall Jimbo is. And he seems to be quite angry about this. That's all we know. So I kind of get this one. I guess it would be pretty annoying. I think a lot of people would jump the gun and go for height too early. Although if they care about it, why not just get out of the way? I don't think it's like an evil thing. But speaking of evil, dude, this comment section is, it's fucking unchecked, dude. It's just like relentlessly shitting on single moms. How obnoxious and predictable. Like, of course they're gonna do that. Also, this guy said doggo to his date on like the first one. That's fucking corny as hell. Frankly, he deserves everything that he has coming to him. If somebody said doggo to me on my first date, like I don't have issue with people saying doggo in general. I do think it's pretty annoying, but like, did you say that to somebody before you even meet them? Like, dude, cornball to the max, buddy. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Get out of here, man. Like, if you're not comfortable sharing your height with this chick, but you're comfortable sharing that you're like a fucking Elon Musk pilled redditor, like, buddy, hit the road. That's what I say. Number 5. How's your day going? Here you can see, some woman says she loves her boyfriend, but he's actually tall, and that's horrible news. Horrible news. This is a pretty common sentiment on the sub. People always act like it's some sort of big fucking own that like, unconditional love is only for the tall. 6 foot isn't even particularly tall, man. Like most of the people on the sub are like 5'10". Who fucking cares, dude? People these days fucking do anything to be the victim. People fucking white replacement theory and shit, man. Part 6. It's everyday bro. As you can see, this based black pill redditor, he's just like, it's about the height, and ladies like, stop, you're not like that. And then he's like, how tall is your boyfriend? She says 6'5", and he's like, every fucking time, man. They're not gonna do this to me anymore. No. This is just like Wojak abuse nonsense. They always think it's some kind of gotcha. I'm the sad, smoky, black pill boy. Boo-hoo. When somebody who doesn't care about height, by definition, date a tall guy as much as a short guy, you're not some sort of smart type of thinking man. You're not some sort of fucking Albert Einstein type of fuck. Go back to where you came from, faggot. Part 7, what the fuck is it called? Most people date average guys. This is a pretty interesting argument against them, because it is by definition, true. Even if the statistic shown in the comment is true that says like, 61% of dudes are single, only like 14% of guys are above 6 feet tall. So that would be like, at minimum, like over half of women would be dating a guy below 5'11". And like, this is like the most generous estimate you can possibly give. I get that being short can be rough in the dating world, but like Christ, this sub is filled with the most like misery, anguish, and hatred I've ever seen. Also, like, this is like average height guys. While being tall may be an advantage, if you're like at least 5'7", you have nothing to be bitching about. These guys, there's like starving kids in Africa. They don't even have a fucking, mud water. These fucking whiners, like boo-hoo, dude. Cry me a fucking river. That's what I'm saying about that. This one is called, this part 8 here is called almost 150k like. I included this one on here because I actually do hate the post they hate. This is a rare W for the subreddit. Like, the self-martyrdom when it comes to being tall and having a shorter partner is like pretty obnoxious. It's not that hard to hold hands with someone 9 inches shorter than you. Maybe the walking speed can be a problem, but like, you're not some sort of like big hero for holding hands with your girlfriend. You fucking dope. I haven't brought it up so far to not accrue ire from the haters. I'm 15 inches taller than my girlfriend, who's also 5'3", and holding her hand isn't a fucking problem at all. So I don't know why people are acting like being tall is some sort of fucking life-changing disadvantage. Call the ambulance. That's what I say. Fucking ring them up. That's my take. Moving on to fucking part 9. Just change genders or get life-destroying surgeries. So here you can see a man expressing suicidal thoughts over the fact he's like 5'5" and has a micro penis. And the comments insist that he should change his gender or get limb lengthening surgery, implying that the penis size will not matter once he becomes tall after spending a ludicrous amount of money and torturing himself. And frankly, I do find this evil. I wanted to show this one because I was, maybe the saddest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. And these comments just go to show, like, in a black pill echo chamber filled with, like, raw misery, nihilism, and hatred, there is no benefit. What do these people want? Which pill? Are you gonna accept the brutal truth of, like, the difficulty in dating, or it's gonna be told, like, oh, it's okay, little buddy. Plenty of women want you, little pipsqueak buddy. Is that what you fucking want? Huh? And it annoys me a little. You're short. I don't want to get into privilege discussion, but there's plenty of fucking blights that are worse to be born with. There's like people who are like born like bald or something, or like fucking born with like a cancer in their knee, and you're out here like fucking like I'm short. You know who else is short, buddy? Like freaking Donald Trump, and he's the president. Joe Biden too. So they're only like. So what the fuck is your excuse, dummy? But there's no mainstream subreddit nearly this big, for being disabled, poor, living in like a war-torn country, any other oppressed group. I just think it's interesting, jokes aside, that like these people have such a victim complex when there's so many worse things in life than being short. Like, dude, as mentioned in this fucking like video, having a micro penis, dude. Having a micro penis is like 10 times worse than being 5'7". Like, dude, I looked up some of these pictures. I thought that were jokes. Like, they literally don't have a shaft. It's just a head. They don't even have balls. It's just a head. And you guys are bitching about being short. Like, everyone's short, idiot. Like, we're on nothing compared to Shaquille O'Neal. But you're lucky you don't have a micro penis. It just gives a kind of like tall girl energy. Like that movie Tall Girl from like 2017. She's like, "You think your life is hard? I'm a high school junior wearing size 13 Nikes, men's size 13 Nikes." And I'm like, dude, have you heard of Adolf Hitler? Have you fucking heard of that guy? He killed like 49 million Jews, like 86, like, and you're out here like, fucking kill yourself. Oh. 10 incel accusations. Frankly, I can't take this anymore. So let's slap a little capstone in the moral on this story. So let's look at this one last post. Let's look at the sucker here. So the moral I want to get at today, this is kind of a rule of thumb on the internet and kind of a counter to a pretty common, narrative that's going around. Incel is a word I think is thrown around a lot, probably like quite a bit too much. It's just like a pretty common insult to anyone critiquing women online. But here's the thing about that. The thing is, I realize, if you are on the internet complaining about women, specifically like a general critique, especially if you mention like their standards, let's be real here. You get no play, buddy. Come on. Come on now. People who are drowning in pussy, don't tend to get on Reddit and then voice their critique about wombs these days. If you're going out of your way, buddy, let's not be daft, buddy. You don't have sex. I hate to say it. I hate to fucking say it, but it's just true. It's facts. And you know what Benny Sheep says about your freaking facts, buddy? Your little goy facts don't care about your little goy feelings, buddy. All right, part 11, the conclusion. My conclusion, go to the fucking gym and be goofy. Like, bring some knock jokes to the bar. Meet some baddies. Never use dating app. Yippee-ki-yay. That's what I say. That's about it. See ya.